This is a photograph I shot in the mountains in the fog where I was trying to capture the atmospheric mood of the clouds. And in today's video, I'm eagerly inviting you to join me on this shoot. I'm showing you the process from start to finish. The good, the bad, the foggy, the rainy, everything. Let's go. So, this story begins a couple weeks ago on a moody, rainy evening while I was working on a project of mine. If you've been following me for a couple years, you might remember that I actually used to shoot a lot in the fog. And that foggy project is basically done, apart from the final step. The final product of this project is a book, which I haven't made yet. But recently, I had the urge to continue working on that and just get on with it. And so one evening I was in Adobe InDesign putting together the printing file, and it was during this process, the revisit of my old foggy photography, that I felt like doing it again, shooting in the fog. It's a certain type of photography that I really love, and just because the project is finished, that doesn't mean that I should be done shooting in the fog, right? And so, seeing as the whole of July here in Austria has been rainy, I decided to make use of the weather. I live here, in an Austrian city called Innsbruck in the middle of the Alps. Unlike the flatter places where I originally shot the foggy series, mountainous locations tend to behave differently and not gather the same type of fog, which is in part why I've rarely been shooting in the fog. However, when the weather is all rainy, that rain needs to come from somewhere. The clouds. And those clouds are up in the sky. And you know what else is up in the sky? The mountains. So I decided that if I find a day in which the clouds are not too high, I could simply shoot on the mountains inside of the clouds and use them as an atmospheric visual tool. A plan was crafted, a visual direction was decided, and a gear list was packed. All that remained to be patient for was the right clouds. So it's currently shortly after 10, and I actually wanted to go out like half an hour ago already, but the weather is not on my side at the moment. It's super moody outside, but the current situation is that we have a layer of clouds quite low and a layer of clouds really high, and the place that I want to shoot is right in between where there's no clouds. It's just not enough. I don't know if you can see it properly, but we have these cool webcams on the mountains, so that from down here I can just see a live view. It's only about 15 minutes behind. I can see what it's looking like up there at the moment, and sadly the clouds are not where I need them, so I'm just going to wait for a bit longer and see. Maybe we'll go out in an hour or so. While we wait for the clouds, let's have a quick look at the gear list. For this shoot, I packed my Sony a7 IV paired with the Tamron 28-75mm f2.8 lens. Mind you, the Sony a7 III, which I used to use for all of my foggy shoots, would have been totally fine, but I knew this shoot was shaping up to be a bit of a damp affair, and the Sony a7 IV I think can take a little more rain, especially considering that the a7 III already has 6 years of work on its back. One more crucial part of the photography setup is the tripod, because I was planning to shoot a bunch of self-portraits. Also, just in case, I packed my Sony 14mm lens, and apart from that, all that was left are the video gadgets that I need in order to document the process. It is beautifully raining outside, and the clouds on location still aren't that much better, but they are improving a little bit, and so by the time I get up there, after leaving here, I can imagine that by then they're good enough. So let's risk it. Let's just go and hope for the best. Right, it's getting a little misty here. There we go. Nice. A significant light, just where it was needed. Cloistered in injustice, dead in the eye of time. Nobody is losing. Faces merge and change, but your face remains the same. clouds are not quite here yet, but they're coming. So I made it up onto the mountain, and this spot was still kind of in between the clouds, but the lower clouds were slowly crawling up here, so it looked like I might be able to catch a few moments at least in which the clouds blessed the location with their atmospheric effect. Hello. Right, so the conditions aren't perfect. If we can find a spot to be like really deep in the clouds, that would be even better. This is the type of terrain I meant with very light hiking. It barely goes up, so I'm hoping that my knee can take this, at least, you know, just for an hour or so. What I was talking about here is my knee injury. You might remember that recent video of a 2-day hike I did back in June. It was on that hike on the second day that sadly my knee slowly experienced increasing pains, and after some medical checkups it appears that I've likely torn my meniscus or something just before it's actually torn. I didn't fully understand, but basically I'm unable to do any serious exercise for a couple months now. Thus, for this shoot, I took the cable car up the mountain and just hiked along these horizontal, easier trails, hoping that my knee can take this. Oh, I see potential here. Look at those clouds. This is looking promising. Ooh, I can barely see what lies ahead of me. That's great. Alright, so I suppose they're coming into this spot here somehow. So we shall go there. Ooh, do you see that? That's what I'm looking for. Okay, I think I've found a spot. Do you see how the clouds just begin here? This is where we enter the fog. And hopefully, thanks to the dreadful weather today, I should have my peace and quiet without too many people passing by, even though this is a very, very popular hike here. Nobody going out on a day like this. Oh, quick real talk. It is so nice to be back in the mountains. I've been not in the mountains for way too long because of my knee, and I'm being a little risky today. Obviously, I could make the injury worse. I'm hoping that whatever light hiking I do today, it's alright. But it's so good to be back up here. I've been missing this. So sheep are going to continue coming your way. Can I pass by? Oh wow. You know what? Let's get out the gloves.
I'll let you go, just need some time.
Fairly steady. So I have very professional rain protection for my camera, an old t-shirt. This has to suffice for today. So I set up the camera and prepared everything. However, during that time, the clouds slowly moved on and away from me, so I decided to just carry the camera set up in my hand and walk a little further to where I thought the clouds might be coming again soon. Bye.
I packed our bags, we'll be on our way.
I see people.
Night was long as I waited.
I found my spot and set everything up and took a couple test photos and was ready, just the clouds were not cooperating yet, but I decided to shoot anyway, simply to get into the groove and warm up. What looks like me just aimlessly wandering in front of the camera with some weird unnatural body movements mixed in is actually... well, that's quite precisely what I was doing actually, but I'm moving because I want to capture myself in the movement instead of straight up posing, which I'm afraid I'm just not really good at, so this little dance usually works better for me personally. Here are some results from the first shots. They've honestly turned out better than expected. Despite the clouds being too far away for what I was going for, the way they decorate the background also works rather effectively in conveying a certain atmosphere. Alright, some fog has arrived. Let's try it out. I need to find a composition real quick before the fog vanishes. Alright, I think that was the first actually promising shot. It's not great. It's okay. it's a start. Let's see what else I can find. Here are the results, and I'm liking these. This is the intense foggy atmosphere that I was looking for, and we're off to an okay start. The steep sloped angle of the landscape is actually quite interesting and seems to add a dramatic touch to the shot as I look down into whatever lies beneath the path. Also, as you can see, I'm playing around with a couple different editing styles today to add some variety to the overall similar shots. In this case, I went with a dark, dramatic blue look. By the way, in case you like my editing in this video or other videos, I just want to let you know that I teach this stuff in tutorials on my Patreon. There you can find Lightroom presets, editing tutorials, color grading tutorials for videos, and much more. If you're curious, there's a link to my page in the description. So honestly, I'm thinking from up here. We come from up here, let's see. The fog is vanishing so quickly. Sweet. Okay, then let's lower the shutter. By lowering the shutter, I meant going quite slow. The first shots were taken at a 1/50th shutter speed to just go with the standard filmic motion blur that I'd use when shooting video at 25 frames per second. Whereas now I went down to 1/30th, which will be noticeably more sensitive to movements, which will appear blurrier. I did this in order to more easily catch the movement and get that blur without having to run around wildly. Here are the results, and I think this is a bit of a mix of okay shots and pretty decent ones. I find that this one turned out rather cool. Here I tried a whole different editing style and went for a black and white look, which somehow I thought suited this particular shot quite well. And this one is also not too bad. I like the movement, which is what I was going for with the 1/30th shutter speed. Alright, that took a couple attempts, but I think I have a couple photos that I'm happy with, a couple poses and moments, so I think we can move on. The question is, what shall we do next? What shall we do? Where shall we go? I'm thinking a low angle shot would be cool. We haven't done anything of that sort yet. I think I'll try further that way, because I feel like the fog stays that over there more. Maybe this is the grass is always greener on the other side type of situation, but I feel like there's more fog over there. Let's get to that green field spot there. Let's see, can we make something happen here? What's the angle like? Can we like sit here? Here even. Here are the first results of my low angle attempts. These are alright, but not particularly good in my opinion, though I do enjoy this wide moody one here. I think I'll try an alternative version. I like the low angle, but I think I want to center frame myself and see if that somehow seems cooler. I don't know. Alright, I like these first attempts, but I think I'm going to try again at f11 to see if I can make it look better with the whole frame in focus, because I think the shallow depth of field doesn't really add much to the photograph here, so let's try it with everything in focus. Okay, I'm trying it once more with an even slower shutter speed to get even more motion blur. Alright, I'm pretty happy with the result. It's looking pretty good, but now it's even foggier and I'm going to try an even lower angle and see if we can get something even better. after lots of trial and error, I gathered a bunch of similar photographs, many of which were not usable, but here are quite a few that I think did turn out pretty good. This one, for example, I like a lot, and I love how the water droplets in the lens give the photograph overall this noticeably soft look. Here are some shots with more movement, and these are the ones that are shot with a much smaller aperture, hence the water drops here are more visible circles. And I'm a little more in focus despite the focus being set to the background. However, I must say that I actually prefer the lower aperture because of the way that allows the water drops on the lens to just mildly blur the image to create that soft look. Of these, I quite like this one in particular. I enjoy the movement that was captured in this moment. And then here is an entire set of images that I decided to edit in a totally different style, much darker and moodier. Fog allows for some incredible flexibility when it comes to editing, so that I can make this shot look like it was taken in blue hour. I think this one is my favourite of the blue bunch. And finally, here's one last set of attempts in which I tried some different movements again. These also turned out pretty cool in my opinion. I think this one is my favourite with the intense movement. Alright, let's continue. Next, I would like to get a photo of me sort of laying down in that grass there and get it from a high angle, because I feel like I too often just rely on eye level and don't play around with angles enough. That's why we just did low angle photos, and now I want to do some high angle photos. There's just two problems. I need to find a spot where I can safely lie in the grass without rolling down the whole mountain, and also where I can lay in the grass without laying in sheep's poop. That would be ideal. Going in now. By the way, I've often been asked how I have my camera set up for these shoots so that, it shoots automatically. So let me briefly show you how I have my camera set up for this. But before that, I would like to briefly take a moment to thank the continued sponsor of these videos, which is Squarespace. And then I'll walk you through the camera settings. If you want to make a website, I recommend using Squarespace. I myself have been using Squarespace for over 5 years at this point, and it's perfect for people like me who are creatives but not web developers. They're an all-in-one platform, so with your subscription you can make a website, host your content, register your own domain name, sell products, track analytics, and much more. They have this lovely intuitive drag and drop editor called Fluid Engine, which is so easy to use and lets you customize the layout and design of your page. If you need some help when getting started, you can start off with one of the many professional and beautifully designed templates, which you can then customize to suit your own style. Or you can work with Squarespace's AI, which enables you to build a website in minutes by describing it and answering a few questions. All in all, what I think Squarespace is great at is combining creative freedom with ease of use, which I really appreciate. Try it out for yourself. You can head to squarespace.com for a 14-day free trial, and then when you're ready to launch your website, you can go to squarespace.com/TeoCrawford to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you so much to Squarespace for continuously supporting the channel. So on these shoots, I simply have my camera set to manual mode to have full control of the exposure. The key setting that I need in order to make the camera shoot automatically is the interval shooting function. This can be found in the menu and activated. In the menu, you can then customize the settings, so you can define how many photos the camera should take, the interval, so how many seconds the camera should wait in between every shot, and stuff like that. The interval shooting function is a feature I've had on both of my Sony cameras and also the Lumix GX80, so I think it's a fairly common setting in modern cameras. And this is the key setting that I use to make my camera shoot photos automatically. So I'm going to block the path, but I think it shouldn't be an issue because I've only met one person. At least it's not raining that heavily anymore, so the camera gets a break. I think I'll stick to f11, that's pretty good. Alright, so the first attempt, I have to say I quite like the angle. The angle is really cool, but I slightly adjusted the angle because I think it can be just a little bit better, and now I'm just waiting for the fog to roll in a bit more and then we'll try again. The fog's coming. It's coming. Do you see it coming? Here are the results. So I think playing around with the angles is certainly paying off. This higher angle adds some diversity to the set and it's pretty cool, quite dynamic. I think I especially like this one here. The simplicity of the composition works so nicely in this one. The landscape roughly consists of horizontal lines, and there's just one thing, the main subject, breaking that flow. Because when standing, my body's shape becomes more like a vertical line than a circle, which was the case when I was sitting. And I feel like this simple clash of lines creates the right tension and clarity in the composition. Here are a couple alternative versions, including an alternative editing style that is a bit warmer and I'd argue a little more natural. I like how this one captures the walking movement. Now I quickly want to move on because we've got this lovely fog here. Here I spotted another opportunity to shoot a photo in the fog of me standing on the slope of the mountains, sort of looking down it, which I was thinking could look interesting. Here's the result, and I think this one actually turned out pretty epic. I went for a dark blue edit again, and the intensity of the fog really pushes the dramatic and atmospheric feeling of the shot. This is precisely why I love shooting in the fog. Then, while I was here, I realised that I could try a little something different simply by panning the camera to the left a bit, and so I did that and tried this variation.
Time is my only escape. I know that I lost you that night. I know that you've already.
Here are the results, and these aren't too bad in my opinion. I enjoy the various movements I was able to capture. This one stands out to me as I'm just rushing away from the camera, and this here is a surprisingly cool happy accident. I was just setting something on the camera, but then later while I was selecting the shots, I thought this perspective with my arm kind of acting as a leading line or frame worked unexpectedly well. Alright, so I've got a couple more that maybe are interesting. Sadly, I'm beginning to feel my knee now. The pain is coming back, so I have to take it easy now. I want to take a couple more photos, I just can't take photos with me running and stuff like that. I have to take it very slowly. So next, I decided to shoot a similar shot that was basically the same angle, but just in a slightly different way. I was aiming to shoot a wider photo with me not as present in the foreground, rather just a small subject in the big landscape. Here is what I got. I think this one in particular turned out pretty cool. It really emits that feeling of solitude in all the fog. Here is an alternative version with a strongly imbalanced composition that almost feels intentional, might be a bit too much to the side though. And with that shot, I decided to make my way back to the lift station to give my knee a break soon, but I kept my eyes open for more opportunities on the way, just in case. I'm thinking using these as a contribution to the composition could be quite interesting. And so I tried one more set of photographs here to make use of that last corner in the fog before I reached the lift station. Here are the results. These turned out okay, but I don't particularly like them, though I can't exactly tell why. Maybe the various elements clutter the frame a little too much, not sure. This one turned out pretty neat in my opinion. I think me standing just works better in the composition than sitting or lying. However, in hindsight, I think it would have been better to move the camera slightly further away to get a wider shot. This one feels a tad bit too close for that all alone in a wide foggy landscape type of feeling that I was actually aiming for. think that might be enough for today. And so that was the end of the shoot. It was great fun to get back into some foggy photography. In case you do not live in a place that gets foggy, maybe there's a place with mountains close by that could give you the necessary height to shoot in the clouds instead of the fog to get a similar atmospheric effect. In any case, if you ever get the chance to shoot in the fog, I highly recommend trying it out. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed coming along with me on this one. Before saying goodbye, I would like to say a massive thank you to the lovely people supporting me and my work on Patreon. Thank you so much to each one of you. If you're interested in Lightroom presets, tutorials and stuff like that, you can check out my page via the link in the description. Also, I have a print job, by the way, in case that is of interest to you. Also, link in the description. With that said, I hope to see you again soon. Until then, goodbye.